Now, who better to turn to in this moment of national drama with international ramifications of great moment than Garland Nixon, radio talk show host and political analyst supreme? Well, Garland, I don't know if the Secret Service shouted Donald Duck and it was misunderstood, but they sure made a mess of protecting Donald Trump in Pennsylvania yesterday. Your thoughts?
Well, yes, they did make a mess, and there seems to be some very serious problems with what happened, some very serious deficiencies, which I think, George, should take us immediately to the discussion that's being had here, to the honest discussion that's being had here. True, false, or indifferent. People are hearkening back to 2017 when Kathy Griffin held up a bloody Trump head, right? And, assassinated Trump in effigy, shall we say. They're going back to 2017 when Chuck Schumer said the intelligence community has 6 waves from Sunday to getting back at Trump should he, cross the intelligence community. They're thinking back to July 1st, just 2 weeks ago, when David Aronovich from the BBC tweeted that Biden should murder Donald Trump, tweeted that, and then took the tweet back and said it was misinterpreted. So I think what's going on, one of the things that's going on here is that very quietly, not on the media, certainly not in the media, but on the streets, people are asking the question, was this a lone gunman? Was this another assassination such as JFK or RFK, where somehow the intelligence community was involved in an assassination or an attempt assassination on a major public figure? Probably the story of Martin Luther King and his assassin and all the questions there. So it may very well be that this person that killed Donald Trump was a lone gunman who had no assistance or guidance from the intelligence community. But that doesn't mean that these questions are not going to be asked and raised, and these suspicions are not going to be suspected, shall we say.
Well, I think, either they're totally incompetent or they were involved. To me, it's binary. Call me old-fashioned, but if I'm a heavily armed Secret Service man and I see a man, as they did see him, we've got pictures of them seeing him in a prone position, holding a rifle behind the President of the United States, well, I'd say that was likely to be an assassination attempt. So either they are totally incompetent or they are involved, don't you think?
Absolutely. And given the history, there's 2 parts of it. As I said, it could possibly be that this is just an individual who was mentally ill or whatever you want to think of, right? But here's the reality of it. But who's going to believe that? Most of the people on the street, as a rule, are not going to believe that, particularly after years of Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Donald Trump is a traitor to America. Well, what is supposed to happen to traitors? So either, and again, this is a discussion on the street, either, some intelligence community figures were involved, or perhaps, which is kind of equally as bad, the constant drumbeat of Donald Trump being a threat to America, demonizing Donald Trump, creating an environment where he was seen as, the end of the world's going to happen if Donald Trump becomes president, created an environment where somewhere out there a weak link, a weak-minded person was bound to take this kind of action again. As you know, George, we've had this discussion right on this show, you and I, as to whether or not this type of thing would happen after everything they've done to take Donald Trump out. And of course, the history, all you got to do is look at everyone who's crossed the Clintons. I think they've got their own section in Arlington Graveyard for the number of people that have mysteriously passed away as a result of, an unfortunate misunderstanding with Bill and Hillary.
Yeah, and then that's before turning to Barack Obama's chefs, plural. Let's talk about this Trump derangement syndrome, which is the cause, bound to be the cause of the events yesterday. whether you believe one of the two theories I have expounded or the other. It still all comes back to Trump derangement syndrome. Now, as I said in my introduction, it's not that Trump drained the swamp or Trump acted for Putin's interest in his first term or Trump's a revolutionary, because he's none of those things. Isn't it the case that it is simply this, that he is unreliable for the deep state? He might take a different point of view to them on the Ukraine or on other conflicts around the world. That he might decide, no, I'm going to strike a deal here because I'm the big deal maker and so on. In other words, he could not be relied upon to follow orders of the deep state as much as the Democratic nominee, whoever they were, could be relied upon.
You're 100% right. And that automatically takes us to the conversation of where did Trump derangement syndrome come from? It wasn't a political operation. It was an intelligence operation. Let's not forget, they lied to a court 17 times in order to get the clearance from the court to be able to spy on the Trump campaign. Let's not forget that they grabbed Hunter Biden's laptop to stop Trump from winning. They had it for a year. The FBI had, I have to go over this, the FBI had Hunter Biden's laptop for 1 year. They knew that it was in fact Hunter Biden's laptop. And what did they do just prior to the 2020 election? They went to Twitter and they went to these social media organizations and the media, and they said, if someone comes to you and tells you that there's a Hunter Biden laptop out there, I don't believe them. That's just Russian propaganda. And, Trump and his people and Rudy Giuliani, they're spreading Russian propaganda, and we'll help you censor that. So they lied. They did election interference. They did illegal operations. A man was literally prosecuted and found guilty for a crime that he committed during the investigation to go after Donald Trump. So they investigated, they lied, and they created an environment where Donald Trump was a Russian bot, whatever the case may be. And so the intelligence community, as you said, saw Donald Trump as a threat. To neutralize that threat, they demonized him to the entire country. And I believe that this is one way or the other, this is part of the result of that. The other part I might add is in talking to people in the party, particularly the Democratic Party these days, it's a brainwashed cult. The things that these people believe, it's absolutely preposterous. And they have the nerve to point to other people and say, well, they're crazy QAnon conspiracy theorists. And when you listen to what they say, it's, their minds have been completely brainwashed by the intelligence community.
Now, what happens next, Garland? Joe Biden, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's not November yet. Joe Biden has just addressed the nation from the White House. He's announced a security review. This is the man that denied RFK Jr. Secret Service protection, despite the fact he's got RFK Jr.'s father's statue in his office and claims to have been a fan of John Kennedy, the slain president, but they denied RFK Jr. protection. What kind of security review might we expect, and what does it even mean?
Well, from the looks of the way things went down yesterday, RFK Jr. may be far better off if he doesn't have Secret Service protection. Perhaps he should go along with his own protection and people that he can trust and that are more competent. But that being said, one of the things that's happened here is that this is taken away from the discussion that we have a president who is completely and totally incompetent for any number of reasons. But number two, that there's infighting in the Democratic Party as to how they're going to get rid of Joe Biden. The polls are plunging. The party has become a laughing stock. It's sitting in tatters. And Donald Trump is positioned to win, which some may believe could have in fact incited this unfortunate incident that happened yesterday. So we're sitting here with a fundamentally broken country, might I add. that NATO just met in D.C. They released a document that said they were bound by their commitment to human rights and the rule of law as they commit a genocide in Gaza. They released a document that said all countries have the right to choose their own security arrangements, with the exception of all countries in the Western Hemisphere, because the United States claims the Monroe Doctrine says that no countries in the Western Hemisphere have a right to choose their own security arrangement. So this place is broken. When the discussion of, I'll say this, the discussion of some kind of a civil war here, in my opinion, would look a lot more like the French Revolution than it would the war in the 1860s, because even the Trump people who are furious, they're not furious at the guy walking down the street. Their neighbor walking down the street, they may disagree with them or even be angry at him. They're furious at the deep state. They're furious at the government. They believe that the government, through either its inability to protect him or through some intentional act, was really at fault here. So the anger from everybody in America is more directed upward to the ruling elite than it is, towards each other, towards their fellow working class people.
Well, let's hope so. Now, I've basically abandoned our poll this evening. 17,000 people have voted. It was George Clooney bringing down Joe Biden. But my thesis now is that nobody will bring down Joe Biden, because Trump's going to win such a big victory. Nobody else wants to be the loser in November's election. So they might as well let it be old Joe, and then they'll put it down to old Joe's failings. What's your feeling on that?
I think that's a solid argument, and you'll have to add this. The Ukraine crisis is in total disaster and collapse. The Ukraine project is in collapse. The Gaza, the Zionist project is in collapse. Our economy, has one foot in the grave and the other on a patch of ice, as I like to say, right? Everything is on the edge of collapse. It would not surprise me if the Democrats' plan is to try to hold on to things until January 20th, knowing that they're all going to fall apart, and then say, okay, well, Trump's in charge, even if it falls apart on January 21st, to say, the collapse is Donald Trump's fault, because they know that right now we're in a house of cards, and it's only going to take one card yanked out of the bottom for our foreign policy, our domestic policy, and our economy to come tumbling down.
Yeah, meanwhile, for 7 whole months, a long time in politics and in war, a man who's periodically at least brain dead is in charge not just of your country's affairs, but all of the Western countries' affairs. I mean, what could possibly go wrong with that?
And what we see here now is, and it's fairly obviously that Joe Biden isn't in charge per se, that he's not making the decisions. I personally suspect what we're looking at more of is a Blinken-Sullivan administration, which is horrifying, because those people are both completely unable to make competent decisions. They're both hapless bunglers, and they're, ideological madmen. They are basically fascists. They are bent on world domination at a time when the U.S. should be trying to patch itself together. So the other part of it is, it's sadly, in a way, it's good for Americans to learn what most of us already know, and that is that the president is not in charge, that even Barack Obama and Bill Clinton supposedly are working to pick Joe Biden's replacement, but we know they're not the ones making the decision, that someone else is saying to them, yeah, here's the group of people that you can choose from to replace Joe Biden, should they choose to do that. So I think the curtain is starting to is starting to fall, and people are starting to see that behind the curtain there are puppeteers, that the people that they thought was in charge isn't really in charge, which means that even the illusion of democracy no more is holding up. That's all we had, was an illusion that we voted someone into power and that person made decisions. That was always illusion, but even that illusion is starting to crumble.
Joe Biden fell over and over and over again, off a bike, on the stairs, on the platform. Donald Trump fell, but he got back up again. And those images of blood on his face and his fist raised, chanting, "Fight, fight," they'll never be forgotten, will they?
Oh, absolutely not. I do think that there are a lot of people who supported Donald Trump and a lot of people who were maybe on the edge of supporting Donald Trump, that this is the image there is one of a person who's tough, or one of a person who got shot and, in the line of duty, shall we say. So, I mean, the kind of metaphorical image of what happened is very, very powerful for a person who's running for president. And I think the way that he has reacted to this has been professional. A lot of people thought that Donald Trump would ramble or say crazy things, but he's been very professional. He has admonished his supporters from, taking any kind of outlandish acts. He said, look, let's kind of wait and see what happens, et cetera. I think Donald Trump's really been really, and I'm not a Trump fan whatsoever. I'm way over to the left like you. I'll probably write in the ghost of Hugo Chavez for president again. But being honest about it, he's done a really good job here of responding to this. And of course, everyone knows that Joe Biden is not mentally competent, and that we, from day to day, we don't know what we're going to get from this guy. But the one thing Joe Biden has is a great insurance policy, though. He has Kamala Harris. That is the best insurance policy any president could ever have. Because even though, the guy right now is completely unable to, really find his way around the stage most of the time, the more you look at Kamala Harris, the better Joe Biden looks. That's how bad she is. I would imagine the Democratic Party is horrified of putting Kamala Harris out to have her start her weird word salad, really silly discussions that she have, because that'll be it for the party at that point. They think they've got it bad now. They will lose bad with Joe Biden. I think if they stick Kamala Harris out there, it will expose that they really stuck her out there just because she checked a bunch of boxes. And at least Biden has an excuse for being incompetent. She doesn't have an excuse. She's supposed to be the young, black, bright, whatever the case may, up-and-coming politician, and she is a disaster.
Yeah, she's Spyro Agnew in high heels. Thanks, Garland, as always, for that tour of the American horizon.